We are finishing up the chapter of Amr al-Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar, commanding what's good and forbidding what's evil, and particularly with the things that are common things found in our customs that are vices, that are munkarat. The last section of that has to deal with Amr al-Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar for the Umara and Salatin, for the princes and the leaders. And Ibn Qudama mentions a bunch of stories of going from the Sahaba to the Tabi'een and onward of how people gave advice to the leaders. We're going to read just like two of them and summarize and focus on what are the main overarching points to take from it, inshaAllah. And then we'll open up for discussion. بإذن الله. فقال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى ونفع الله بعلومه في الدارين. The author, he said, may Allah be pleased with him and allow us to benefit from his knowledge in this life and next. He essentially relists the same things that we've been covering this entire chapter. In that hisbah, holding people accountable, religious condemnation, has a multitude of different steps that you have to go through if you want to advise someone. If you're talking about a person, there's on a peer level, there's a particular type of accountability, but also lack of fear of threat to your own physical or your physical well-being, yours or your dependents or your family or otherwise. So with regard to rulers, obviously there's a clear change in authority and in the hierarchy of what someone has the ability to do and otherwise. So he mentions that with regard to the rulers, this is where we can inform and admonish with gentle words, and then perhaps even go to the level of condemning or shaming using bad language, but that's only if you are sure that no harm will come to anyone else. Again, that's only in the circumstance where you know no one else is going to be harmed by what you're doing. Now, I think it's really important that we recognize that the context in which Ibn Qudama is writing this is the 7th century or so. There's still, obviously, after the Khulafa al-Rashidin, there's no more utopian Islamic civilization or government, but there's a difference in population size. There's a difference of scholars, but there's also a difference in the type of rulers in which they're engaging with. They're in the very least Muslims, and to the majority of them. And so engaging with that ruler is going to be different than engaging with ours. The governments that they were working with was strongly based off of or influenced by the Sharia. And so the circumstances we find ourselves in are very different. The access to the rulers because of population, the piety of the rulers or lack thereof, and the people. I think what's most important for us is to remember that we do our part. Our own personal, individual level. And that starts with our own piety and our own mindfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like first and foremost. That we are all individual microcosms of our family, which then represent our community, which then represents the society. That's not to say that like if we are righteous and we get up for tahajjud every single night, our brothers and sisters in Gaza are going to be free. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give our brothers and sisters in Gaza freedom yesterday, not tomorrow. And hold those people accountable. That's not to say that piety will rectify things. But if on a communal level, we're all working to be more righteous, then it naturally will rise the tides of spirituality that everyone will be impacted by. And the rulers are only as strong as, or only going to be reflected of the people whom they're ruling. A story which he mentions is that Sa'id ibn Amir, he said to Umar al-Khattab, Sa'id ibn Amir was also a Sahabi, that in the time of the Khilafah of Umar al-Khattab, Umar sent him to be in charge of Hims in Syria. He was the governor of that land. And he said to Umar, so he's a governor speaking to the Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Very different hierarchy in power at this time. And he says that I'm advising you with some very comprehensive Islamic things that you need to be aware of. He says, fear Allah with your interactions and your dealings with the people. Do not fear the people with Allah. Fear Allah in how that you interact with the people. Don't fear the people in thinking about Allah. What he's saying to Umar Khattab is your priority and your focus is to be how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to hold you accountable for the amana that you have. Not necessarily what people think about what it is that you're saying and you're doing. He says, and don't be afraid of what people say. Because the best of speech is the speech that is truthful in action. The best type of speech is the speech that is reflected in truthful action. And you should love for the believers, those that are close to you and those that are far from you, that which you love for yourself and for your family. So first, fear Allah with regard to how you interact with people. Don't fear what they say, because the best thing that you could say is rightful or truthful actions. Love for your brothers and sisters, those that are close to you and those that are far from you. That which you love for yourself and for your family. Rush into uncertainty to reach the truth, so long as you can recognize it. So if you're looking to, if something is unclear, don't step away from it simply because it's unclear, but go into it and try to find what the truth actually is. And don't worry about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the claims or the shames that people have accused you of. And so Umar then, Amir al-Mu'mineen, the second best person after Abu Bakr al-La'an, the one whom was the one who the Prophet ﷺ said that if there were to be someone after him, a prophet after him, be Umar al-Khattab. Umar responds to them and says, who's able to do this? Ya Abu Sa'id. Like, who can reach this level? This Umar saying this. And so Sa'id says back to him, من ركب في عنق مثل الذي ركب في عنقك. The one whom you are more attentive to, you are paying attention to your own soul just as much as they're paying attention to theirs. You're paying attention to your neck for those other people just as you do for yourself. Like, what's most important for you is to worry about you and your meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at how someone of a lesser status spoke truth to power directly. But the way in which he did it was, not only did it benefit him, it benefits the entire society. And Ibn Qudama mentions many different stories in the same way. What we have to remember is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah will not hold the people accountable with more than they can handle. And so if we don't have access to doing something, then we have to worry about ourselves. And we have to make sure that what we're doing is not going to harm others or push other people away. And we have to focus on that which is most important to rectify the situation. The last story that we'll read is the Arabic is so poetic. طيب, Muhammad ibn Wasi', rahimahullah, he entered upon Bilal ibn Abi Birda in a day that was really hot. And Bilal was in Ethiopia, in Habash, which is the Horn of Africa. And he had ice. So now he said to him, Bilal said to him, Ya Abu Abdullah, how do you see this house? Like, what do you think of this house? And now you've got the situation where it's so hot outside, but you've got ice, meaning you're living lavishly. And he says, this house is good, but Jannah's better. This house is nice, but Jannah's better. And you need to be mindful of the hellfire that you're fleeing from. And he says, and what do you say about qadr, the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He says, your neighbors are the people of the grave. So think about them. Your neighbors, the true place in the afterlife, are those that you have next to in your grave. You need to be thinking about them, because that is more beneficial for you to busy yourself with than to think about, that is more than for you to think about qadr. And so then he says to Bilal, make dua for me. He's like, I don't have nothing else to say. Make dua for me. And then Bilal says to him, what are you going to do with my dua? And people are at your door. Excuse me, Muhammad says to Bilal, sorry. What are you going to do with my dua? And people are at your door and they're saying that you've oppressed them. What you need to do is remove or respond to their du'as before my dua. Don't oppress them. Because don't oppress them, and you won't be in need of my dua. Again, telling him, how is it that you find yourself living lavishly and you're focused, you've got ice on a really hot day, and people are accusing you of things and you're oppressing people? You need to focus on doing those things first and foremost. Again, I don't want to go long because I know that we're already late. But I think what's most important as we finish this section, and next week, inshallah, he's going to talk about music. So it's a hot topic. I think what we need to do as we finish this whole entire chapter of commanding what's good and forbidding what's evil is remember those steps in our own lives. That if we see something wrong, that is objectively wrong, first we need to inform the person that that thing is wrong. Just inform them because perhaps they don't know. Then we need to admonish them kindly with gentle words. Then, when we can get into shaming and trying to change the situation. 4, we'd have to break the tools that they're using to do the sinful things that they're doing. And then 5, you can threaten them with physical harm. But again, that's if you have the actual capacity to do so. Wallahi, I think this is really, really important for us as a community if we're thinking about how it is that we're going to be in suhbah, in community with each other. Because so often do we see something that we think is wrong and we rush to correct it before skipping like the first 2 steps at least. We don't know, we haven't communicated with this person, we haven't spoken to them nicely, then we rush to shaming them. Akhi, how could you do this? Sister, how could you do this? Don't you know that's haram? And perhaps it's actually something that's mukhtalif fi aslan. It's something that is differed upon amongst the scholars. It's not something black and white. So actually, we don't have a right to speak about it anyways. And so again, in closing, we really have to be careful and thoughtful about how it is that we interact with our society, with our communities, and our people in society with us. Anything that says correct is from Allah and Allah alone. Instance incorrect, myself and shaitan. Just because I finished early, I wanted to give people the ability to leave early if they want to. But I'm here. I'm not in a rush to leave, so we can open it to a large discussion, inshallah.